Hello, and welcome to this mini class on boosting self esteem and confidence in children. I'm so glad you're here. I am Senem Pejahesh, and I'll just introduce myself. I am a child therapist of 11 years. I specialize in play therapy, and I have a private practice in Boulder, Colorado. I am a parenting coach, which goes alongside my child therapy practice. I am a mama, and I am forever a student of learning from the children that I work with and the child that I raise. My passion is really about helping children love and accept themselves for who they are and helping parents to do our own work so that we can really help our children live to their fullest potential. We all want our kids to be resilient, confident people with a strong sense of self, high self esteem, resilience. And in this day and age, with children bombarded by so many influences, how do we nurture confidence and an inner sense of trusting themselves, believing in themselves? So, we're going to talk today about some hands on ways that you can support your child, your children, in developing their confidence, their self esteem, and their ability to handle the challenges that life throws their way. So, let's talk about confidence a little bit and set the tone for what we're discussing in the next 20 minutes or so. So, I wanted to start off with what I am not talking about when I refer to confidence. I'm not talking about hubris. I'm not talking about narcissism. I'm not talking about those toxic patterns that outwardly look like confidence, but actually stem from deep insecurity. So, those are patterns we commonly see in people who bully. And things like that. Or I'm not talking about this sense that I have to do it all myself, that kind of rigid confidence that we can't rely on anyone else. Or that in order for one to be confident, they have to be better than anyone else. All of these things are actually insecurity, not confidence. So that's what we're not talking about. And I did a little experiment and I looked up just online how to gain confidence. And here are some of the most common responses that I found on my search. Look at your achievements. Think of things you are good at. Talk yourself up. Get a hobby. So these are some of the ways that it's suggested that we develop confidence. However, these are things that we do, not who we are. What I want to talk about is helping children develop an internal sense of themselves as capable, trustworthy, resilient people who can handle anything, no matter what, and who know that they are worthy of living to their highest potential and really having access to their most amazing, magnificent life because life is short. Why not? So, what really is confidence? So, confidence is the feeling or the belief that you can rely on something. In this case, self confidence, that you can rely on yourself. I like to go further to say that it's an inner knowing that you can rely on yourself. We want our kids to grow up into people who know 100% that they've got their own back all of the time, no matter what. And in our world, with the influences that are upon them, this takes a lot of awareness and it takes a lot of resolve on the parts of teachers, parents, caregivers to guide kids towards this inner knowing because we're actually taught to look outside of ourselves to know that we're okay. If we look good, if we present well, if we have the right things, if we get the right grades, we play the right sports, we date the right people, we have the right job, if our children are well behaved, then we can feel good about ourselves. Then we are okay. This is how most people of my generation were taught. But we all know that people can go through life feeling quite empty, even when on the outside, all of those things are in place. So we're talking about this inner knowing. That's the kind of confidence that I want to help you to develop in your kiddos. So I'm going to give you guys a number of tips and expand on those tips. So we're going to talk about responsive parenting, emotional connection, about listening, empathic listening to your children, about self-talk and affirmations, allowing kids to make mistakes and feel the feelings. And we're going to talk about how to praise and a unique approach to praising children that shifts the paradigm from what we've been doing in the past. So let's dive in. So the first one is responsive parenting, and this actually begins in utero. So if you are the parent of a baby, a newborn, if you're pregnant, or, of course, we've all been through this phase as parents, even if our kids are older. So responsive parenting starts especially in the newborn and infancy period. It's forming that connection with your infant, responding to their needs in a loving and attentive way. And as they grow, so in the beginning as a newborn, you meet every single need, always, right? They cry, you meet the need. They cry, you meet the need. That's essentially what the newborn period is. And then as they get a little bit older, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, we start to add a little bit of challenge with loving support available. So maybe you're putting the block a few inches away and then letting them move towards it or reach for it or hold the ball a little bit ahead of their, higher than their head, and they're grabbing it. And then we celebrate them when they grab it for the first time. And we celebrate, you did that. You worked so hard. Your muscles are getting stronger. You're sitting up on your own because you practiced and you practiced even with babies. So during infancy, children develop confidence through the secure attachment relationship with caregivers. So baby has a need, caregiver meets the need with love, attention, compassion, and the child internalizes this idea that my needs are valid and worthy of being met. So the purpose of the attachment system, a biological system innate in every human being, every mammal, is that through secure attachment with the caregiver, the child develops a secure attachment to itself, to him or herself. So when there's wounding in attachment relationships, it can absolutely impact a child's confidence and the trust that he or she can rely on themselves. But this can be healed. It can be developed, even if there was trauma or disruption to a child's first confidence building experiences. The brain, we have neuroplasticity. And so we can go back and heal these things through continued responsive parenting, even as children get older. And of course, this evolves. Maybe when your child is 5, you're not jumping to meet every single need, because we're going to talk about this. We want to walk the edge of that comfort zone, but we're still coming in with emotional connection and responsiveness and that loving attention that helps children again feel that I am worthy of having needs and having those needs met. And a little side note, I just want to mention, culturally, there are gender differences with how we instill confidence in children. And this is really important just to be aware of as you're meeting your child's needs. Often the message that little girls get is very different from the message that little boys get. Boys are validated typically for their strength, their tenacity, their speed, their productivity. Girls are typically validated for their looks, for being good, for being quiet, compliant. The message being, it's good to be docile and look good. And the message being, it's good to be strong and bold and out there. Very different messaging, which can set them up for some pretty toxic patterns of insecurity that then get masked as confidence. So just be very mindful of this. And if you notice as you're thinking about this, that this pattern has shown up in your parenting, journal about it, write this out, and think about some ways that you want to make shifts so that you can catch yourself. We are all learning, and that awareness and acknowledgement of our shortcomings or our areas for growth. And so be gentle with yourselves and be willing to make those shifts. So the next step I want to talk about is emotional connection. This is the foundation for children's self-esteem. Through connection, our kids build emotional intelligence, which gives them confidence. Children are, throughout childhood, that process is emotionally developing answers to this question: is it okay to be fully me? Is it okay to be fully me? And, we give kids so much validation so they know that they're lovable when they're cute, good, funny, sporty, get a good grade. But they want to know, am I lovable when I am anxious, angry, tired, acting out, unhinged, struggling, messy? Imagine how confident you would be if you knew from the time you were born that you were lovable, even at your stinkiest, loudest, most flailing, out of control moments. This is what we're providing to our kids that can help build this foundation for confidence. The way we develop emotional intelligence is by letting them have their feelings, big, intense, small, quiet, all of them. We give kids space to support, and we give kids the space and the support to feel whatever it is that they need to feel. We're saying to our kids, it's okay to feel these feelings. It is okay to be sad, scared, mad, frustrated. In fact, of course you're feeling those things, and I'm going to help you. I'm going to support you to move those feelings through. When children are dysregulated, they are feeling threatened and unsafe. This is the opposite of feeling self-confident. So they often need to borrow our regulated nervous system and our resources in order to move through these big emotions. And emotions are just our brain and body's response to the stimuli that we experience. We're all having emotions all the time. In our culture, we aren't taught how to deal with our emotions in safe, healthy ways. They're kind of seen as a nuisance. They get in the way of logical thinking. So, in contrast to this, we want to give our kids the tools to deal with their emotions. Now, this doesn't mean the tools to just get them out of their emotions. Okay, breathe so that you're not angry anymore. No, emotions actually stimulate this release of neuropeptides into our body, into our nervous system. And we want our children to feel their emotions to completion in order to help that neuropeptide release come to completion. When we do not feel our emotions to completion, when we don't let that cycle completely move through our nervous system, energy gets stuck. Emotions are just energy. Energy gets stuck in our system. Stuck energy leads to limiting beliefs, it leads to triggers, it leads to illness, it leads to ongoing dysregulation. So we want to help our kids move through their emotions in safe, healthy ways with validation and connection with a loving caregiver, you, who can hold space for what they're feeling and let them know it's okay. And of course, if they are acting out or harming themselves or anyone else, we redirect that back to allowing them to express themselves in safer ways. So again, emotional ability, emotional intelligence is the key for confidence. And it's this ability to understand and use and manage your own emotions in productive ways. It's knowing that it's okay to feel these things and trust that one will be okay even when you're feeling your emotions, and helping you move through your emotions in these really healthy, adaptive ways. Now, sometimes it doesn't feel good or easy to move through your emotions, but that's okay. That's part of just being a human. So we need to ride this wave of emotion with ourselves and with our child when it arises to help get to the other side of it. It's like you ride the wave, you get to the other side, and then eventually calmer waters will settle in. So emotional connection. The next piece of this confidence building process is the self-talk. So the way children talk actually has everything to do with us as parents. So how do you talk to yourself? Our kids are watching and they're picking up on everything we put out into the world, even when we think we're being subtle. So are you loving and forgiving and kind to yourself when you've made a mistake or when you're upset? When you mess up, do you call yourself a bad mom or a bad dad? Are you critical of your body? Have you ever called yourself like stupid or an idiot when you've made a mistake? And it's not just how you talk to yourself out loud, but how do you feel about yourself? Because kids, they're so connected to us, they're picking up on everything. So if you aren't able to look in the mirror every single time and be able to say to yourself, I love you so much. I've always got your back. You are amazing and gorgeous and infinitely cool and a wonderful person. Then it's important to start these practices that I'm talking about here with yourself first. Emotional connection, responsive parenting to yourself. because there's, somewhere along the way, you've gotten a message that your needs are not worthy of being met and are not valid. So as those responsible for bringing up confident, self-assured people who love and trust themselves, we're actually being called on to expand our capacity to offer this love and assurance to ourselves. So again, imagine if you had seen your mother or your father loving herself or himself deeply and completely every day of your life. Like, how would this have changed the way you could relate to yourself? And it is said that our voice becomes our child's inner voice. So, in addition to how we talk to ourselves, we can be guides on our kids' path to developing these healthy relationships with themselves. So, we nurture their self talk with positivity, that willingness to try, that openness to fail, and those loving arms and words and, just energetic support when they do mess up. When your child is facing a challenging situation and they want to give up, you can actually come alongside them as opposed to coming at them. No, you're going to keep trying. We're going to stay with it, right? You come alongside, even physically. And we can let them know that they are seen, that you know it's a lot, and that you believe in them, and that you are working to help him or her believe in themselves just as much as you believe in them. I love this phrase, and I use it a lot with my child. If you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. And I think it's Henry Ford who said that. And then you give your child the choice. Do you want to choose to believe that you can or choose to believe that you can't? And then they might say, I want to choose to believe that I can't. And you can explore that more. But usually you're going to hear, I want to believe that I can. I just don't right now. Okay, cool. We'll work to get there. Sometimes children have a lot of resistance to trying hard things. This is because for sensitive kids in particular, getting out of the comfort zone elicits some very uncomfortable feelings that they would rather not feel. So if this is the case for your child, don't worry, it's okay. You want to do some really gentle, empathic detective work to understand what might be the feelings that your child's trying to avoid. And then you work with those feelings to really support your kiddo and meet them through the emotional connection. And then you gently encourage them to take one step at a time out of their comfort zone. So like I said, sensitive kids, they might not be able to take that full plunge all at once. It might be too hard on their nervous system to do this because their nervous system can get very flooded by uncomfortable emotions. So there's a wisdom for them in holding back from it. It's like a self-preservation. So we want to gently, consistently help kids expand their window of tolerance for uncomfortable emotions by having these repeated experiences of stretching a little bit and then seeing that they are safe and okay. And this is how their capacity to grow expands. One of my favorite ways to cultivate a healthy sense of self in children is affirmations. And affirmations are our self-talk. We do them consciously and unconsciously all the time. So unconscious affirmations might be things you're saying to yourself, like, nothing ever works out for me. I'm bad at this. I'm always late. I never get things done on time. Things are always so hard for me. I never get it right. Right? Yuck. And we do this to ourselves with our inner monologue quite often. So replacing that self-talk with positive affirmations is life-changing. And please note, I don't believe that affirmations are the end all. I think we actually need to do our emotional work. So if we're really stuck in patterns of those negative affirmations, there's a lot of emotional work that needs to be done on the things that inform that self-talk so that we can shift it on a deeper level, shift that kind of underlying coding. And then on a cognitive level, using the affirmations to replace those limiting beliefs that we're kind of working through by feeling the emotions with positive self-talk. So teaching children to say a few affirmations a day can be really powerful and even life-changing. These can be, I am brave. I overcome challenges every day. I am always willing to give it a try. I am good. I am kind. I am wise. I can do hard things. Or one that a amazing client of mine came up with just last week was, "It may be hard now, but I know I can do it." Yes, right? Like, how great is that? Practicing this kind of positive self-talk each and every day with our kiddos can really shift the way that they see and the way that they feel about themselves. I also love the phrase, "I can handle this." I can handle this. And especially when kids have a hard time bumping up against the edges of their comfort zone, we want to teach them, when you are there, what you want to be saying to yourself with breath is, "I can handle this." And you're breathing, "I can handle this," because it's replacing that self talk that's actually, wanting to say, "I can't handle it." So, we're going to talk about how we praise and how we can praise differently. So, in our culture, we have typically offered praise to people for their accomplishments and for things that are biological that they can't even control. So, we show pride when kids win, or they get a good grade, or they win the race, or they're, "Wow, you can ride your bike now. Oh, you won the swimming race." Or even those biological things, having a certain talent for their eye color, their hair color, their height, things that are completely outside of their control. We overpraise for end results without a lot of focus on the process that got us there. This creates a sense in children that the process doesn't really matter, that it's only the end result that's worthy. And so, in order to really build kids' self esteem, we need to change the way that we are praising and validating their accomplishments. Because if we're just focused on the end result, or even primarily focused on the end result, sometimes trying doesn't feel worth it to the child. So, the growth mindset work really does a good job of this by focusing on the process rather than the end result. We can view mistakes as opportunities for growth and learning, and we can help children learn that struggle and challenge are a normal part of the process of learning new skills and growing ourselves. When we're up leveling, when we're learning something new, it's uncomfortable. That's just a normal part of life. Our culture focuses so much on the outcome and not on that uncomfortable part. You look at athletes, we don't see them, training each day, grinding, in the gym and on the field, facing these major mental blocks, sacrificing social relationships and other parts of their lives in order to be successful at what they do. We see them winning. And then sometimes we see them losing, which is seen as not so good. And a wonderful example of this from recently is Simone Biles. And for those of you who are not familiar with Simone Biles, she is 5, I believe, maybe 6-time Olympic gold medalist. And she really rocked our world in the 2021 Tokyo Olympics when all eyes were on her to take the gold in gymnastics in every competition that she was in. She is known for being so far above and beyond everyone else in the world. Like, no one meets her level of skill and capacity. But the pressure this year was too much for her, and her mental capacities were like under this toll that was inhumane. So when she chose, in my eyes, the most courageous athletic decision probably at least I've ever witnessed, half of the world chastised her for quitting. And how we viewed this is really indicative of where we're at as a culture. So she quit this competition, and she did not actually perform in any of her events in the 2021 gymnastics Olympics because her mental capacity was under so much toll that she was unhealthy. It was unsafe for her to do so. But what if quitting when you're truly taking care of yourself could be seen as brave? And what if we could uphold her tenacity, her drive to be her absolute best? Like, she is an athlete who worked so hard to get to where she's at. And also her willingness to honor herself with the world's eyes upon her, and then use her as an example for our kids, an example of you do everything you do to be your best self, to live up to your highest potential, and you honor yourself when you realize that what you're doing is actually harming you and it's not honoring who you are. If our culture had spent decades putting the focus on Simone's process, how hard she works, how much she believes in herself, the challenges she's overcome, rather than on her achievements and being the best gymnast ever the world has ever seen, no one would be thinking of her as a quitter. Nobody. We would be celebrating her as one of the hardest working, most courageous athletes that ever was. And so I really want to encourage us to see these shifts with our kids and help them see these shifts of not that she quit, but that it was really incredibly brave. So we need to change what we're celebrating with our kids. We actually need to celebrate just the win, or they come across something that's hard, we celebrate harder. Yes, this is an amazing opportunity to grow your brain, to grow yourself. We are in this together. Let's stick with it until we figure it out. We've got this. I believe in you, and I believe that we can do this. Because if we're raising children consistent with the way our culture portrays success, that if it's hard, you must be doing something wrong, then we're not giving them the reality. Of course, I believe that we struggle more than we need to in our society, but that's because of our limiting beliefs. That's where the emotional connection, the emotional intelligence, and then the affirmations layered on that help us. So we believe in ourselves so that when we hit a hard situation, we expected it. We know how to handle this. Of course, it's going to be hard. It's uncomfortable when you're growing. And then we grow, and then we get to experience the joy and the pride and the incredible feelings that come from that. So we're always encouraging our kiddos to live up to their full potential, of course. We just change the narrative about how one goes about getting there. So I'm going to touch on one final point that we don't always talk about, but I think it's super important to highlight. And it's about teaching our children how to trust in themselves. And again, teaching them how to work through the discomfort they might have to feel as they learn to trust in themselves. So of course, this varies depending on the child's age and the developmental stage, as well as the emotional issues or trauma that they might have experienced. So please keep that in mind as you're implementing this approach. Adapt it to your child's needs. So when children come to us for help, sometimes our immediate reaction is just to do the thing for them. After all, they need help, and it would be easy to just help them, right? But often this is us facing a momentary choice point and believing unconsciously that it would be easier to just do the thing for them than to let them struggle or have them feel their uncomfortable emotions when we don't help them immediately. So it's our discomfort with their emotions that can sometimes covertly run the show. So we as parents need to keep working on that, because the layer below that is our discomfort with our own emotions. If I'm uncomfortable with my child's emotions, there's something within me that isn't comfortable with me feeling those things. Or I didn't get those needs met when I was sad, so it really makes me angry when she is sad, right? So when your child is facing a struggle and comes to you for help, it's an opportunity each and every time for you to help your child build confidence. We can say something like, I see you're facing a challenge, and I trust that you can figure this one out, and I am here for you. Or maybe, we had a situation where we're learning to tie shoes in my home with my child. So I'll do one side and show you, and step by step, you follow along with me and you do the other. Or I see the challenge that you're facing. This is a really great opportunity to grow your brain. How can I support you while you figure this out? And your child might say, Mommy, just do it for me. Dad, just do it. And you'd say, I get that. But then I wouldn't be doing my job as a parent to help you learn. But I am here for you as you figure this out. I believe we can do this. If we give kids the answers regularly without encouraging them to get a little uncomfortable and work through the struggle, then they don't grow that capacity to work through the struggle. So we can do this with the responsive parenting and the emotional support that they need to know that they're not alone. And if the emotions come up, which they will, we meet those emotions with empathy and love and support, because the emotions actually need to be released. Your child needs to feel those feelings to completion in order to work through them for their own growth. These emotions are an important part of their process, and they're elicited for a reason. Your child needs to work through them. We want to really encourage our kids to know that they can handle hard things and that facing hard things is an opportunity to grow and change and to open up our new potentials and new parts of themselves. It's a beautiful thing. And through this amazing partnership between struggle and support, confidence develops, self-esteem improves, and children become more willing to try, more willing to fail, and learn from those failures. And when we take this approach to developing confidence, we actually help our children build a scaffolding, a foundation that sets them up for success with anything they try in the future. So thank you so much for joining me for this confidence mini class. I look forward to hearing your thoughts and your comments. And I really hope that we will see each other again very soon. Have a wonderful day and be well.